Hello, my guest today is Beryl Marsden. Hi Beryl.
It's lovely to be here.
And Beryl actually has an album out shortly on RPM Records via Cherry Red. And we're going to talk about her music. She has many fascinating stories from her career, and also later on her spiritual development, which has been very important in her life and still is very important in her life. So Beryl, if we start at the beginning, you were telling me earlier you had 9 brothers and sisters. That was a pretty busy household, wasn't it?
As you can tell, my mother didn't have a TV in the house, you see, and that's, that was the problem, I think. But 3 of the brothers, my older brothers, didn't live with us, unfortunately, so there were 7 of us growing up together, and the 3 girls shared a bed.
The 3 girls shared a bed.
3 girls shared a bed, yeah, which was quite common then, because a lot of couples had quite large families. Where I lived anyway, they did, so a lot of people shared beds at the time, yeah.
And you were living in Liverpool? In
Liverpool. I actually was born in Toxteth.
Right.
But then we moved to a place called Wavertree, which seemed quite posh. It wasn't really. Yeah. And yeah, so we moved there. There was 3 of us that moved there, and then my mum had more children after that.
And when you were young, especially as a teenager, your first love with music, you were also interested in the bigger questions of why you were here. But it was music that was your first love and took over the direction of your life. And you won a talent contest, didn't you, at 14 years old? I
certainly did. Yeah, music was very, very important to me. I actually won a record, a Bobby V record called Rubber Ball.
Oh, right.
Remember it?
Yeah.
And it was at Hollyoaks, a place called, not Hollyoaks, it was Hollyoaks Hall. And then I also won a twist competition. And I won a pink twist dress as well when I was 14, a couple of weeks later.
Right. And did you feel at that stage that you might go on to be a professional musician, or was it just a hobby?
In my heart, I just knew that's all I wanted to do, was to sing. So I that's what I wanted to do, and that I found the way to do it. I actually went to a place with a few of my friends where a band was playing, and they were sort of egging me on to jump on the stage, to do a song with a band called The Undertakers. Yeah,
who were quite a well-known band at the time, weren't they?
Yeah, I didn't realise, because I was only not quite 15 years old.
Yeah.
And they gave me the opportunity then to join them, to sing a couple of songs myself, and then do backing vocals for them as well.
Yeah. So how was it at sort of that age, 15-year-olds, to be already involved with the band?
It's quite exciting, and it just felt quite natural, because, as I said, there was nothing else I really wanted to do. So being with them felt like a very natural thing, even though it was mostly male-orientated. All the bands, the groups, were mostly males. There was very few females at the time. I didn't have like a friend that was in a group, another singer or another musician at the time. So good job I was a tomboy. So I fitted in quite well.
I think you needed to fit in a way, yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And of course the whole Liverpool music scene there was becoming very vibrant, not only locally, but internationally too, wasn't it?
When I first started to sing, it wasn't international really. It did happen quite quickly.
This is around 61, was it 60, 61?
I was little, no, I started singing, so I've been singing 49 years this year.
Right.
So what does that work out? About 62.
62.
62 for me. I think the Beatles had just come back from Hamburg, a place called Hamburg, which I was finding out about at the time. This great club called the Star Club. And a lot of musicians had gone over there, come back, and really transformed from being like, sort of, I don't know, quite sort of dark and all, and everyone had black leather, apart from me, because I hadn't been there yet, So, and the music just seemed a lot more sort of grown up then, a bit more rock and roll than, sort of poppy. So it was quite, it was very, very exciting, and I think the actual sound was called the Mersey beat sound. So somehow or other, I think a lot of musicians then, I don't know how it happened, but we did have this sound that was just,
it was a unique sound somehow.
It seemed to be that way.
And did you actually play at the Cavern Club at that time?
I did. I played the Cavern a few times, and I did a track live at the Cavern called Everybody Loves a Lover. I can't remember who I did it with. I think it might have been the All Stars, not quite sure. And the Cavern was just amazing. It was just a fabulous club. Very hot, very smelly, but the music was just fantastic, and there was just a great vibe about it. And there was no, as you know, there was no alcohol at all, nothing. So nobody was doing anything like that. You know, it was just pure adrenaline and the music, and a great dance called the Cavern Stomp was invented there as well.
And which were the main bands that were playing at the Cavern in those days?
The main bands I liked to watch were a band called the Big Three.
Yes.
The Beatles.
Yeah.
The Mersey Beats were quite good.
Yeah.
And then some Manchester bands I liked as well, with the Hollies,
Yeah.
Wayne Fontana and the Mindbenders. I didn't see many London bands myself there, but they were the bands I liked to watch.
So, and then I think a few months later you were given the opportunity to go and play at the Star Club in Hamburg.
I certainly was. I had to come to London first,
Yeah.
get a special licence from Bow Street Magistrates Court, and have a chaperone.
So why was that?
Because I was underage. Yeah, I was 16, and in Germany you have to have a chaperone to perform. You have to have a special licence.
Right.
And also you have to be out of the club and off the streets by 10 o'clock at night. You know, even if you were a young German living there, the same thing applied. You know, you had to be off the streets and out, not in any bars, or not bars, but pubs at the time. So I had to do my singing early on, and then mostly was put in a taxi back to the hotel in Hamburg. You know.
And there was really a chaperone with you?
He's supposed to be with me. He sort of stayed behind.
It was a male chaperone?
It was a male chaperone because he was my manager at the time,
right.
A man called Joe Flannery. And now and then, for a special treat, I was allowed to stay, but I had to kind of tucked away at the side of the stage when, you know, when I watched people like Ray Charles or Jerry Lee Lewis, when they were, you know, they were on quite late in the evening. But then I'd get, you know, put in a cab again and sent back, you know.
And how was that for you, being in this exciting place and yet somehow being there but not really being part of the real action, all the partying and drinking afterwards?
I think I feel quite lucky, you know, because when you think about it, the first few weeks I was quite frustrated because obviously you wanted to be there, you know, what they're all getting up to, what's happening, and then I'd see them all sort of falling over, getting home early hours of the morning, or sometimes I'd be getting up for breakfast and they'd all be coming in. Yeah. So I'm glad I wasn't really allowed that bit of it anyway, you know.
So then you were in Hamburg for how long?
Off and on for about a year and a half. I'd go over and perform for a bit and then pop back again and then go back again. And yes, about a year and a half.
And you were playing still with the Undertakers at that time?
No, various musicians at the time. And what happened with the Undertakers, when they came back from Hamburg the first time, I still wasn't quite 16. And I'm really excited that they'd come back, so I'd get back with my band, you know. And anyway, as I said, they all sort of came back all in this leather gear, and they looked about 10 years old and stuff. And sorry, the bad news is, you know, really, we've kind of moved on a bit, and you're this young girl, you know, and it kind of doesn't fit the image. So I was quite upset, actually. But it's probably true. And in a way, it gave me a kickstart to think about what I wanted to do and what I wanted to sing. So
when you were in Hamburg, you had your own band? Was it the Beryl Marsden band, or?
No, it was never. It wasn't called the Beryl Marsden band. It would just be some musicians who maybe do, you know, their own spot, and I'd do a spot with them. I did a spot with the Eyes, which was became Paddy Klaus and Gibson, and Klaus Foreman, and they were really good musicians. And then I did a slot with just 4 guys from Liverpool, as well. Yeah.
And music, of course, was changing at this time too, wasn't it?
It was. I mean, for me, it was going from sort of poppy rock to more like R&B. R&B then was very different to what we think of R&B now. We were sort of getting a lot of imports from America, and sort of putting our own stamp on some of those things, which was one of the records I made. It was called I Know by Barbara George, which you know, it wasn't a sort of girly song, you know, that would, like the Susan Bourne or those type of singers that were happening at that time as well.
So at what time did you signed to Decca, didn't you, I think, was that right?
Evidently, yes. But my manager had to do it because I was underage at the time.
Right.
So I made, I think, 2 records. Well, I've cut 4 tracks with Decca Records.
So, and that was, so you were recording for Decca at 15 years old?
Yes.
Which in those days was very unusual to have a girl that's so young with a record deal, wasn't it?
Same thing. I didn't think about it. I mean, making records really wasn't top, you know, high on my list, to be honest. It wasn't something I sort of. I preferred to be singing. I just like to be out there singing as opposed to recording. You know, I just thought, well, I was told, go, you know, this is what you're doing, go and do that. So I sort of did it. But my heart was always to be out singing with a band or, you know, be on stage and that sort of thing.
So you made, I'm just looking at the list here, you recorded 2 tracks, 63 I Know and I Only Care About You. Then 64 you did When the Love Light Starts Shining Through His Eyes, Love Is Going to Happen to Me. And did they get any radio play at all, or? I
think so. I mean, I know I did a TV show with one of the tracks. I think it was Thank You Lucky Stars, or one of
that
those.
Was on at the time, yes.
Yeah, yeah. And I think on the radio, I think I got a little bit. But I think because I was kind of going back to Germany, still going to the Star Club, I wasn't really around to promote, you know, the records at that particular time.
Yeah. So you must have felt yourself gaining in confidence as a singer, having all this live work, because that's quite intense to be working for off and on 18 months in a club, playing most nights, I would guess.
Yes, and practically, I think we played every night, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember getting a night off.
Yeah.
It's a great way to learn your trade.
It certainly is.
It's the best way, really. There's nothing more like it. And as I said, it was just my love, you know, to do it. So I feel very fortunate, really.
And were the Beatles out there at that time, or was this you were out there later than them?
No, I was out there later.
Yeah.
They'd come back and literally had started to, you know, cut their first single, and then got an interest from outside of Liverpool, you know, and that's when they really started their journey.
You met the Beatles because you played on one of their tours, didn't you?
Mm. Yes, I mean, I'd done a few gigs with the Beatles in Liverpool, like the Tower Ballroom, places like that, and then eventually they asked me to come on their very last tour, you know, the last tour that they did. I think it was the end of 1965.
So what was that like?
It was mad, completely insane. It was just this. It's very difficult to explain. It was mania. It was a total mania. You know, they used to call it the Beatlemania.
Yes, yeah.
And it was like this. As soon as the curtain went up, when they were standing there ready to play, it was scary, actually. There was just this screaming and it didn't stop. It didn't kind of stop and then start again. It just was just there, this terrible mania, you know, for the whole time they were there. So that's why they stopped performing live. They weren't enjoying it.
And when you were you obviously playing as a support band, when you came on, I guess people didn't scream when you were playing, did they? I remember they did. I don't know.
Look at here, no. Actually, I felt quite lucky. A really good reception, fortunately, and people listened. Yeah. And because I know John said, you know, I think he made a comment something about. He said, you know, you're really lucky people are listening to you because they're not listening to us, and it's just they weren't enjoying it anymore. You know, which was really sad. And also people, you know, the girls were throwing things at them all the time. The stage was littered and all kind, you know, and all kind. If they said anything like, I like jelly tots or I like something, then the next they'd be bombarded with them, you know. So, yeah, it was great for me to be on the tour, but then also a little sad because I couldn't hear them either. And you know, there was such a great band to listen to. Yeah. So going on tour with, and all you heard is like screams. It's yeah, a bit crazy.
And presumably you got a bit friendly with them, did you?
Yeah, a little bit. They were great guys, you know, very, very down to earth. And And you know, I think people were afraid to approach them for some reason, and so I think they had to go out and approach people because people didn't want to go and talk to them for some reason, you know, and they were just really down to earth, loved chatting to people. I mean, Georgia knocked on the door once or twice asking me for an Iain, you know, just I said, do you want to chat? He said, yeah. So we just sat there and just chatted about things, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People build up an image, don't they, of somebody, and it's kind of, they feel they're unapproachable on a human level, but actually what everybody really wants is human contact.
Without doubt, definitely that, yeah. So yeah, I mean, as I said, I have fond memories, but also it was sad that people didn't really listen to how great they were, their music, you know, that wonderful talent. So they just stopped. You know, and then just obviously then went on recording for quite a lot of years afterwards. But I thought that was really sad, really.
So after you did that Beatles tour, you joined a band called Shotgun Express. Is that right?
I did. Well, it was put together. It was Peter Barden's, I think they were called Peter B's Lunas. I think it was Peter Barden's, Mick Fleetwood, Peter Green and David Ambrose on bass.
Right.
And at that time, with a new management called the Gunnels, and they sort of thought they'd heard me sing and Rod Stewart sing and Peter B's band, and thought together it could be a good combination.
Right.
So then I can't remember who thought the name up, the Shotgun Express. You know, I remember the photographs standing near the big shotgun. I wouldn't do that now. But they were a good band,
But that's, you know, quite legendary people to play with. Obviously at the time they weren't legends, but
No.
Peter Green and Mick Fleetwood went on to Fleetwood Mac, and Rod Stewart went on to be obviously Rod Stewart.
Yes. Yeah.
So you were actually playing with three legends at a very early stage.
But as you said, you know, no one knew that was going to happen at that time. I mean, we worked really hard. Same thing. We were gigging every single night. You know, we were kind of getting in the van up the motorway, you know, doing our gigs, coming out of the gigs into the van, back down the motorway, getting it. You know, the same thing. We made one record together, but I think I Can Feel the Whole World Turn Round,
which is on your album,
on the
isn't
album.
it?
On the album,
people are going to buy hopefully when it comes out. Yeah.
But yet again, I think, you know, they didn't use the whole band, which I thought was a shame, because, you know, we did have our own, like, sound at the time, you know. And they used an orchestra for me and Rod to sing, you know, the song to, and Peter B did the B-side. The guys did the B-side.
So Peter Green, he's a real legendary guitarist. Was that evidenced there in the early days when you were playing with him?
I thought all those guys were fantastic in their own right. I think each and every one, you know, were really, really good musicians. Peter was just amazing. And I think he was getting a little frustrated because we were sort of doing things like Sam and Dave songs and bluesy, rocky, soul-y. You know, it was a mixture of all these songs that we liked. And Peter was, you know, sort of wanting to play more blues and things. And yeah, I saw, you know, when I heard Peter play, how incredible he was. I knew he was going to go far and do great things.
And was he writing much at that time?
None of us were writing at that time.
Really?
It's strange with the writing thing. People weren't encouraged to write that much. You know, just like, oh no, do covers because people will know those songs. You know, and it's hard when you're just performing songs that people don't know at that particular time, anyway.
So you were mainly doing covers.
It was all covers.
Yeah,
yes.
really, it was all covers.
All
that
covers.
band, and it was all covers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apart from the record, we didn't perform the record on the stage anyway. But yeah, it was all covers.
So just going through the story methodically. You then after that, I think you joined a band called She Trinity. Is that right? Have I got that right in sequence?
Yeah, just not for very long. I did a couple of gigs in Germany, and I think we did one or two and France, in Paris. I just thought it'd be great to work with all females, you know, because I'd been with all males since I was 15 years old. And they were a good band, very good band actually. We had two drummers. We had Barbara Thompson on sax and clarinet, and yeah, it was interesting times.
And then your life took a little bit of a different turn, and you got married and had children.
Yeah, I think I was a little bit burned out, actually. So I returned back to Liverpool. I didn't go to London. I went back to Liverpool after Street Trinity, and just joined a band, a local band, and we had a residency at a place, you know, in town at a club called the Victoriana. And then I met somebody and got married and had some children.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, a bit of normality, I thought.
But it wasn't a very normal marriage, though, was it?
Not really, because obviously, I don't know. I think I might have been a little selfish. I think musicians can be a little selfish. So I didn't really want to stop singing altogether. And it kind of jarred a little bit. And I think he got a bit jealous of some of the attention. And then he had a very bad car accident. And we weren't sure he was going to pull through. And his personality did seem to change.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it became a little violent. So it wasn't happy times. And I just thought, right, I have to make a break away from this.
But how was that for you? You fell in love with someone, you got married, you had a family, and then they're turning violent. That's very, because you're tied with the children. That's a very difficult situation to deal with.
Yes, yeah, and it wasn't nice, to be honest. And I'd actually then at that time also lost all of my confidence, totally lost it, and I was having terrible panic attacks at the time as well, really, really bad panic attacks. So it was that, you know, and then obviously you're questioning, well, why is this happening to me? What have I done to deserve this? All of those questions were coming up really, really strongly. So I think, you know, subconsciously I set off on a search to find out some answers about why these terrible things were happening to me, you know.
And what form did the search take?
Well, I had read, when I was about 14, I had read a book about Gautama Buddha Siddhartha, which I found quite fascinating, because I had, you know, even from a little girl, I'd always questioned things, and the stars, the planets, why am I here, who am I, all those things. Then obviously it gets put aside while other things happen in your life. I sort of went, you know, I went to a few places and found out about meditation and tried that. It didn't seem to, but ease the pain's not the right word, but give me the answers that I was looking for. And eventually I came to London when I was 29 and bumped into a fellow musician I hadn't seen for 10 years, which is Hilton Valentine from the Animals. Yes, that's right. Yeah. And they were friends and from the 60s and stuff. And he just, I could see there was a massive change in his life. Because I was trying to avoid him, actually, because I didn't particularly like him in the 60s, but he came over to me. It was in a club called the Speakeasy.
I remember the Speakeasy, yeah.
And anyway, he started to chat, and I was just telling him what was been happening to me, and he said, oh, you know, why don't you come and find out a little bit about this Buddhism that I'm practicing, which was Nichiren Daishonin's Buddhism. And so I went along to a meeting, and haven't looked back since, basically. It was, that was the beginning of my spiritual
So when you
journey.
went to that meeting, what do you remember that attracted you about it?
There's a chant. The basis of the practice is a chant, Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. And just listening to some people sitting there doing this chanting, it just stirred something inside of me. And I felt, honestly, I know this. I felt as if I already knew it. If that makes sense.
Really?
Yeah. And also there was like, it looks like, I wasn't sure about this, but there was a box, seemed like a box, and there was a scroll inside of that. And I kind of looked at it, wasn't sure why they were chanting to this scroll, but it also looked very familiar. So it seemed fine, you know. And literally the next day, I did start to chant every day. And you know, it just made me feel happier, a lot happier.
So you did the chanting on your own, or you were going back and doing it at the centre? How did it work practically?
To start with, I was doing it a little bit by myself sometimes, and then Hilton and a few other people who were practicing at the time used to come and support me and help me to do it. And then, obviously then I was doing some study as well, because I'm not a person who would follow something like a blind faith or anything like that. So it has, the study to do, there's a chanting, and then we used to have meetings where we just discuss Buddhist principles, and I'd hear experiences about people who've been doing it for a few years and how their life had changed as well.
And you felt like you'd come to that situation with the husband, the marriage that had gone wrong. You started to feel a healing happening inside you, did you, on that?
To start with, I was told that I could actually, I could chant for anything I felt I wanted to chant about. I'm telling the truth now. So after a few, I thought, oh, that's really good, that's interesting. So I could chant for him to really have, to really be in pain like I've been in this pain. So I did, I'm telling you the truth. So it was kind of like, well, he hurt me, so he should be feeling this hurt as well. Well, it was all this, I suppose, anger really, and of pain I felt. So I did start like that, and as I was chanting, I just felt, no, it's not the way, and to heal myself, if to have anger to someone, that's not going to heal my life at all. It's just, so in a way, but at least I was honest with myself, and then I turned that around. I didn't feel angry towards him. I actually told him about this practice for him to do it, so he could heal himself as well. Because I don't feel, I'm sure a lot of it was the accident he had that caused, this transformation within him, So I did try to give the practice to him as well.
So let's get this clear. So when you start the chanting,
Mm-hmm.
you're chanting because you want to change something in your life or something to happen in life. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, when you very first start to chant, obviously you don't know much about it, so you concentrate, I think, on the words, and the words are, to be an absolute rhythm with the law of cause and effect, which is the universal law of life itself, and to draw out this great state of Buddha that we all have in our lives. So it's not an external thing that you get. It's something that's already internal to draw out. And yeah, I would say it's a healing process, but it doesn't. It took a while for me to, if you like, to really forgive and in a way to feel gratitude towards him, because if that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't have maybe not gone on this spiritual journey and found this incredible practice to do.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because something happens in our life which we think is against us, is adversity. But as you say, that triggers something else that leads to something else, and you find something that you probably wouldn't have found if something else previously hadn't happened that you didn't like. Absolutely
right. And I think that I've learnt a lot about when things seem to be going wrong, or something comes and you get a bit scared. It's more like a challenge now. It's a challenge. It's something to you can actually use to turn. And I really believe in my heart that all poison, if you like, poison or problems can be turned into great medicine. And without those things, in a way, all of those things that happened to me, the panic attacks, the lack of self-worth, all of those things, I can really relate to people if I meet people like that, if they feel that way, to really encourage them, but I wouldn't have that empathy if I hadn't gone through all those things myself.
So how quickly did things start to change inside you when you did the chanting? Was it, usually it takes time for people to forgive, to heal, to find a new direction.
It does, but my immediate, for me personally, as soon as I started to chant, as I said, I just felt something really wonderful, like a warm, wonderful feeling, which I hadn't felt for a long, long, long time. So that was quite immediate. And then obviously, as the days progressed, and then weeks and months, things come into our minds, so then, and still have an influence But eventually, you know, little by little, if you like, all those terrible feelings of anger and hurt just kind of melted away, you know.
And is there a mental process that goes with it in terms of understanding or explanation?
I don't know. I mean, the only thing I did was to do the practice, as if you like, as the Buddha taught, you know, and that is to do the daily practice and recite parts of the Lotus Sutra, which are the highest Buddhist teaching. And I think study is very, very important because it does help help to understand, you know, what is going on in our lives on a daily basis as well. So that's, you know, it is a practice to do every day. It's like a great tool, I think, to have in life.
From a little bit I know, the Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism is very popular in Japan, isn't it? That's right. Is that where it came from originally?
Yes, Nichiren Daishonin was in 13th century Japan. And he was known as a bit of a rebel, basically. He was the first person that he had told the government, basically, that you know, everybody has a Buddha nature, women, men, not just the elite, and you know, and of course it was unheard of for women to have, you know, to be able to become enlightened at the time. So he was like a rebel that said, no, everybody has this, you know. And he was basically hounded and nearly beheaded because because of this belief. And he did say, he said, I didn't invent this. I haven't invented the universal law of life, which is Buddha itself. So, but I have got a founding a practice that enables everybody, you know, very simply to be able to do this every day. That's what he did.
And what happened to music in your life? Did it sort of take a back seat, or were you still doing some, making some records? Or?
At that time, I took to the practice and actually, you know, I did that first, you know, and I was working, well, I met you, didn't I? I was working as a waitress in a place called Manor, and I had a little job in a pub, and so you know, my singing, as I say, because I'd lost a lot of confidence, I'd lost a lot of, you know, do I want to be on stage, because I didn't feel good about myself. And then bit by bit, you know, I started singing again, and I did, you know, the odd session, or then I met an old friend that was in the Shotgun Express with me called Phil Sawyer. And we started doing a little bit of writing together. So step by step, I started getting back into music.
And I know, from what I know about your life, you got very friendly with Sandy Shaw.
Yes.
And you shared a flat with her for a time, didn't you, in Harley Street?
We shared a flat for a while. I actually met Sandy at a Buddhist meeting, actually. We both started, no, it's quite mystic, isn't it? We both started practicing Buddhism around about the same time, within a couple of weeks of each other. But I'd never met her before, even though I knew who she was. And she kind of heard about me. But we did become really good friends, Still are good friends.
Must have been quite exciting life sharing a flat with her as well, wasn't it? Because she was with Jeff Banks at the time, the fashion designer, is that right?
Well, when I moved into the flat at Holly, they were having a break from each other at the time. But they were both fantastic people, and Jeff actually started to practice Buddhism as well at the same time. So it was like all three of us, you know, and we sort of encouraged and supported each other, you know, as well. But it was quite exciting. Sandy wasn't doing much singing at that time. I mean, she did a few things abroad, but not a lot in this country.
Well, what do you think it is about this form of Buddhism that has attracted so many people in the music business? I know lots of people who've done this chanting. Is it, I'm wondering, is it maybe because it's not exactly singing chanting, but somewhere there is a relationship there somewhere? Yeah.
I don't really know the answer to that. But I think obviously when you hear people chanting, it sort of is lovely, and it can be quite harmonious. So I'm sure that could be part of the immediate attraction. But I know now, from when I first started in this country, there was only a couple of hundred people, and now there are many, many thousands, and the same all over the world. There's many millions now. and of all different walks of life. Or, you know, so it's not just musicians or actors or, you know, artists. It's you know, in where I practice in Islington, mostly, you know, the people who work in offices, or there's teachers, and there's a doctor, a psychiatrist. So there's, you know, it's all different walks of life. Yeah.
And so, just going back so I fully understand, although you feel you're chanting for something, you're actually chanting to be in touch with what you call the Buddha nature. So you're actually chanting to get more in touch with the real you.
Yeah, that's spot on. Yeah. So it is the, if you like, this great the life force which is connected, that we're all connected to basically as well. So this incredible life force. That, you know, you don't change into somebody else or something else. It is totally you, but it's the actual the real you. You know, the you that has boundless, if you like, compassion and courage and wisdom. You know, whereas before, you know, as I say, you know, it's taken me a while, but you know, I feel mostly now I really enjoy my life based on that, on those qualities.
It sounds to me like when you were teenager and you had kind of no fear almost, and you were singing on stage, and you know, the Cavern and the Star Club and everything at 15 years old. It's just amazing, really, as you say. There weren't many girls doing that. You were kind of living the real Beryl, and kind of you lost your way a bit with the marriage and the difficulties there, and then the chanting has helped you find your way again.
Yeah, I would say yes to that. It has, but as I said, it's nothing external. It's something, you know. What's wonderful. It's a day-to-day thing, isn't it? It's every single day. It's very easy to do, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people are taking to it now, because you don't have to go off into retreats or mountains to attain enlightenment. You know, you can actually do it where you are and as you are, and it's this incredibly simple but very profound practice, and definitely it's helped me get back my, if you like, my confidence, and who I am. Actually, more so than even before. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, maybe when you were younger it was a little bit over the top. It was that teenage kind of enthusiasm, and which is wonderful.
Yes.
But it doesn't necessarily have ground in it.
Yes, I would say it. I mean, I was quite driven then, I would say, you know, to do that, because I did love it. But there was, you know, I think now I still love to sing. You know, really do. But I also love lots of other things now as well. You know, whereas then it was just that.
You're very focused.
I was very focused on that.
Yeah.
Whereas now my life hopefully is quite a lot bigger. You know, so I can enjoy lots of other things as well as singing too.
There's something I wrote down when we talked on the phone. You were saying that you did some chanting with Herbie Hancock, and he was telling you have to be a great human being to be a great musician. If you really look at what he said, that's quite something there, isn't there?
Yeah, and that really made me think a lot, as I said before, because I think sometimes, and musicians or artists, we can be quite selfish, and it is all about us. And you know, and when Herbie said that, because he said through his practicing this Buddhism, he'd learned the most important thing is not what a great artist he is or a great piano player, or you know, it's to become a great human being. Then his music becomes great. So first of all, you know, strive to become a great human being, and then your music becomes great.
Yeah.
I think that's fantastic, isn't it?
It is, and it's interesting, and this maybe isn't directly the subject of the interview, but I find it so sad that so many artists, when they're younger, they make great records. And it's actually very rare for an artist to have a long career and still make great, groundbreaking records. And even like, you know, the great acts like the Rolling Stones that are still a huge act.
Yes.
For most people, they haven't made a great record for a long time. It's something about that, there's that youthfulness and passion that comes out in your first first, second, or third album. Then it goes on the decline. And maybe someone like Herbie Hancock, I don't know his music so well. Maybe that's an exception because he starts with that enthusiasm, and because he finds himself, there's a new, well, not necessarily a new Herbie, but there's more depths of him comes out.
I think also Herbie's also a great mentor for other young musicians, and you know, so he's fantastic at that as well. But I think, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I can go by what I feel, but I feel in my life now, I'm singing so much better. This is not a plug for the album, honestly. No, but I really feel I'm singing so much better and so much freer, you know, than ever before. And so I feel the opposite of that. Though I'd still loved, I've always have, probably always will, love singing. But I feel I'm a lot more open with my voice now than I did even when I was younger.
And that reflects the fact you feel more open in yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And are you at peace most of the time, do you feel?
Most of the time, I'd say. I think what upsets me, obviously, is when others aren't at peace, when you see, you know, all the upheavals happening, you know, in the Middle East or in Africa, or that obviously upsets me, you know. But personally, myself, I'm very much at peace.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know also from what you've told me, one of the things about Nichiren Daishonin Buddhism is that you do chant for world peace.
Every single day, single day. And it's that whole thing, the practice is for oneself and for others. So it's not, it's a two-way, always a two-way thing. And, you know, though I'm at peace and though, you know, I enjoy my life very, very much, you know, I still yearn, if you like, and you know, for a much better world for my children, my grandchildren, for our youth, and try and do my best to support and encourage young people, you know, to see how great they are. You know, not to just dwell on the negative aspects of their lives, if you like. And every first Sunday of every single month, all of us, all over the world, millions and millions of us, we dedicate that chant, if you like, that, you know, absolutely for world peace, of the happiness of all humanity and all life on the earth.
No, that's good. So we should talk a little bit what's on this album, which, and I can't pretend it's a finished version because we haven't got it yet, so I haven't actually got the track listing here, but it's basically, it summarises your career. It has all the early tracks you made when you were signed to Decca in 1963.
That's right.
And it goes through, I have some of the tracks here. It has the track that you did with the Shotgun Express with, so it's you and Rod Stewart singing.
Myself and Rod Stewart singing.
And
on that
Peter
one.
Green's playing guitar? Or?
Not on that track,
okay.
No, that's they did the B-side of the record. Yeah.
Right, okay. And then there's also some tracks that you've recorded more recently, isn't there?
Yes, I'm quite excited about that.
So tell us about those, yeah.
So, there are 4 tracks, I think. One, I really like it. It Changes, one track called Changes. And, well, I think that sounds quite obvious, doesn't it, all the changes. But it still has that feel, the retro feel, because my influence is obviously, you know, a lot from the 60s. So it will still have that feel to it, but it's still, I think it's still quite modern, but without taking away the you know, all the influences of when I first started to sing. Everything I Need is about, if you like, friendship, and also having everything you need within you as well. And then It's Too Late is it's just a fun little 60s, you know, style track, and there's a track on there called Shaking, which I really like, which is kind of a little bit more rocky. And
you've written these tracks yourself?
Co-written the tracks.
Co-written the tracks, yeah. So that Because the early tracks you weren't writing, were you?
No, I used to, when I was in Germany at Star Club, I used to actually write songs. I used to write lots of lyrics. And they say, look, I've written the, and people just go, oh, you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
So, you know, and
people said you don't want to be writing songs.
Yeah, don't be doing that. No,
really?
just, yeah, oh yeah, I know. And,
Yeah.
well, and because there was no one else around me at that particular time doing that, I kind of, you know, just went somewhere really. So,
yeah. I just remember one thing that we missed out was you actually sang on the John Lennon song Instant Karma, didn't you? How did that come about?
I did. I was in this, sound like I lived in the speakeasy. I was in the club, the speakeasy at the time.
I used to go there a lot as
well.
Did you?
Yeah, it was a great club, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was great.
Fabulous club. I used because I loved dancing as well as singing actually, and it was there was a keyboard player that used to Billy Preston.
Yeah,
because he played Billy.
Yeah.
So he came in and he must have gone to the manager and then came out because he came out and said, oh. The manager sent me over, is it okay, Beryl, you're a friend of John, you know John, don't you? And I said, John? John Lennon. I said, yeah. So there was a few of us he'd actually approached, and John had said, go down there, because they know they'll be down there, to come and do the chorus on Instant Karma, which was at Abbey Road. So I actually went in John's white Rolls Royce, actually. And went then. I didn't actually speak to John, because I think he was in the booth, you know, where they were recording it with Yoko. And there's about 5 or 6 of us, including Billy, that sang the chorus, Instant Karma, which is, you know, sometimes I sort of smile at that because, you know, I think John was quite spiritual, you know, and his understanding was quite profound sometimes. Even in that song, we all shine on like the moon and the stars and the sun, you know, so that's like eternal life, isn't it? That we're all this incredible energy, you know, that we do. So that was nice to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, our time is nearly up, Beryl, but what you promised to do was after this programme, you're going to do a little bit of chanting just for a few minutes, so anybody who's been interested in the Buddhism you've been talking about can maybe have a little chant along with you, watching you chant, and they can pick it up and see how they feel. So I'm going to thank you very much for coming along to talk to us here.
It was a pleasure, a real pleasure.
I'm going to show the mock-up front of your CD, which changes the story of Beryl Marsden, has the early tracks plus some later material. Actually, maybe we should do a little chant at the end, put it on the record. Don't know how you feel about that. Still time to do it. It's an idea anyway.
An idea.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see.
All right.
Okay. So thank you very much for watching, and I hope we see you again soon.
Thank you.
Goodbye.